Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise and join us in the pledge? Tonight is both our regular meeting and our budget workshop for February. And we will take questions on the agenda. It's not a very long agenda.
It's hard to hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is that any better?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll take questions on the agenda. I'll just point out on the back page is the exemptions that we will consider. Those are for seniors, disability, the various veterans, and fire and ambulance exemptions. We didn't print them out this year. This is about the 5th or 6th year we've been doing them. If you need additional information about them, you should visit with the town, certainly to see which ones you may or may not qualify for, particularly with the veterans. And that leaves us with a budget presentation this afternoon.
Yes, February's presentation of the board. Please join me below. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for Mount Cole joining us. This is second presentation. Last month we presented January's, which was 12% of the total budget. This is 10%. Next month, in March, is the big month, obviously the most expensive. It includes salaries and benefits. And also we hope in March that we'll have a better idea what the state will give us in aid. And the budget will tend to firm up by April when the board must accept the budget or tell us to go back and cut. And of course do the public vote in May on this budget. So the second month, anything you hear or see as presented is still given to the possibility of cuts. We presented, the board will ponder what's presented, and then make determinations if we have to, if we go over 2%. We must stay within 2%. So this is what we presented last January. The Board of Ed, Central Administration, Insurance, Printing, BOCES, Technology, Transportation, Debt Service. Tonight, the 10%, the instructional areas, pupil personnel services, that includes special education, guides, and ancillary areas. Again, it's 10%. So we start with the curriculum development and research in service, what we are recommending this year, and we have recommended in the past, unfortunately it's been cut necessarily, is we have Columbia Reading and Writing in grades K through 5. All except 5th grade. They have the writing program and have had since the rest of the grades have the writing. But grade 5 is missing the reading component, and Columbia, our teachers have found out the reading and writing complement each other and work better together. So we'd like to make it whole and have K through 5 Columbia Reading and Writing, and that's in this budget. What that involves is not only the libraries and materials and the books, but training for the teachers in the reading program in grade 5. Also, professional development, the science assessment, the New York State assessment, for years was given in grade 4. It's going to be given in grade 5 next year, and professional development is there as well. So the money drivers here, 5th grade Columbia Library training, and then our retraining every year like we do K through 4 teachers in the reading. So it's professional development mainly, Columbia reading and writing, science assessment, grade 5. In the principal's budget, if you look at the bottom line, there's a decrease. But what they are asking for, if you look in the lobby, we just had Congressman Zeldin here and he appreciated our Wall of Fame. We have numerous graduates who spent time and did their service in the military. We honor them with a picture in the lobby. There are a number of them now, and we'd like to put it in a little orderly fashion and do it the right way for them. And we're also, this year was great when we're labeled a National Blue Ribbon High School, and we have materials that we'd like to put up in an orderly fashion in the lobby as well. So it's a lot of lobby stuff, and in the library, we also like to make it more of a media center rather than a traditional library, where the kids can socialize, hanging out. I've been there. They are more, you'll see less books. It's all basic media and remote, everything else going on. So with that, it's still a decrease in the principal's instruction budget. And you'll see, well, down below is co-curricular. And the point to make is the principals, in their budgets every year, get a certain amount of money for clubs. So in that pot, they have to see how many clubs can we run in the high school. It depends on what the advisors will get paid. And you look in your budget and say, okay, we have some money for another club. What groups are asking to have that club? And the process generally is two in all of our schools, is that if the kids are demanding a club, requiring a club, they have to find an advisor. That advisor advises that club for free, no stipend the first year, to see how successful that club runs. If it's fine, the decision has to go to the principal. Do we have money and room for that extra club? So that's co-curricular, how it runs. We've adding a little money for robotics in the drama club. But again, the principals make all those decisions in-house. Math, science, technology, just a mild increase, and that's basically for workbooks in grades 5 and 6 and algebra 2. Not a big expense there. In humanities, what we're going for is, as some of you were here in the audience last year, we were proposing a 5th grade social studies program, My World, which was very successful this year. The teachers love it, the kids love it. And grade 3 is clamoring for the same type of program. They went to the director and showed what they're using as materials to try to meet the state curriculum requirements, and they're not. So they would like this. They saw grade 3, just like the same program in grade 5 that works, and we're requesting that we get that going in grade 3. But going forward, budget-wise, one grade level at a time. And so grade 4 will be moved next year. But the grade 5, social studies are very successful. Teachers are clamoring for it. Grade 3, they approach the director, look, this is what we got, this is what we need, and we're trying to do that for them. Okay, this is a little bit of money for replacing sports equipment, volleyball stands, various games inside, things that we're out, badminton and volleyball nets, things of that nature. And Scott's budget, which you always usually cut him every year. Right, Scott? Sorry. Okay, this one's pretty important in music and art. In music, we have some instruments that are no longer repairable. And we have to, they're pretty important and large brass instruments. They need to be replaced. And you can see, occasionally I just start wrestling with that one microphone. Those are 2 working microphones in this wonderful auditorium, this high school. We need new microphones. Guest speakers, assemblies, drama, and board meetings. So every board member has a mic they can use. So microphones, wireless, new, that actually work. Instruments, books for music theory. And then for art, we need potter's wheels and display panels for our art shows that we run here at the high school. Special education. The first time we see a decrease there, but you must understand this, and I say it every year. There is no special education budget per se. We don't say, Ms. Staniger, here's your 47 million, spend it, you can't go over that. The money special education gets is determined by the Committee for Special Education. Whatever goes in a child's IEP must be provided. That is the budget. Now what we did, because every year we have a number of students who move in, who are pretty high cost, they have needs, and we kind of have to look where can we get that money, what we do to pay for those high need students. What Ms. Staniger and Linda did this year, they built in money in this budget, even with a decrease, to provide for 7 more high needs kids, should they move in. If they don't move in, we don't use the money, it goes back in general fund balance. Guidance, the big item up there that we have done. Now, some of you know we were attacked by ransomware at one time, and we were worried about PowerSchool, which is our student information system that we have here. So, fortunately, we got out of that pretty unscathed. But what we did was move it to BOCES, because their cybersecurity is much safer than we can provide here. So we now took it from here to PowerSchool and BOCES, where it's well protected. And BOCES occupational education, the second one on the bottom, sorry, some of you can't see that. There's a $40,000 increase. How do we pay for OCED for our students? There was a time when I was here, the board, some board members remember, we only had 11 or 12 students learning the skills in BOCES. 11 or 12 demanded. We doubled that now. We have 23 students for next year. In various types of skill courses, they want to work. They want a skill, they want a job. And our kids succeed in those areas as well. Let me show you the type of courses they take. Culinary arts, animal science, cosmetology is a big one, we have 3 requests. Electrical trades, 3 requests. We even have 2 aviation students. It runs the gamut, and that's what our kids are interested in. So we try to provide that for them. It's a little different than I want to go to college, get my BA, MA. We provide for the students who are not choosing that path. And our kids are being very successful in these courses. And I got this letter on Friday. I want to thank the high school for sending it to me. 3 of our students in the TEP program made the honor program, honor roll, 90 above. And I'm proud of those kids. That's what they're doing. I always tell the story that my son chose the Navy and chose air conditioning, heating when he got out. And we squabbled about college. My other daughters had different masters, went to college, they're in education. But my son, I always tell the story, he's made much more money than me in his life because of what he was able to do and provide for them, and that need. There's need for those trades. Unfortunately, many students go into it. He himself is looking for his students to take over, or young men to take over the business. They're not there. So these are things that are needed, our kids want, And I think they're valuable, and I'm glad the board has supported this in the various interests of our kids. Adult ed, driver's ed, they're paid for by those participants. If they kids pay for the driver's ed, adults who choose to take courses here also pay the fee to take the class. That drives itself. So in summary, these categories, the first one I showed you, fifth grade teachers, college, reading, so it's K through 5, Columbia Reading and Writing, professional development for those teachers, and the science, grade 5 assessment, professional development. Supervision, mainly at the high school, that's the foyer, a wall of honor. We should be very proud that we've been named National Blue Ribbon School. And the slow transition of the library from a typical library to a media center. And instruction, I mentioned before, third grade, we'd like to implement the My World Social Studies program that's highly successful in grade 5, but in grade 3 this year. As well as that, we have the instrument replacements in music, new microphones, and music theory books. That's all in that one category. And then co-curricular, I should have mentioned also that in this money, we, along with Port Chuck and STEM, and some of this money also goes not just for the equipment for our classes in our schools, but for the STEM team to compete with Port Chuck. They've invited us to join them because it was new here, and next year we hope to have our own team and be on our own in robotics. Special ed, I told you that is a decrease, but we're providing for future students coming into the district. Guidance, even that, so that's not really. BOCES, I told you the programs, the way they run that. We have 23 kids. We pay on the 3-year average. What did we have last year, the year before, this year? So whatever that average is, we pay, right? So since more kids are going in, our average for 3 years is going up. That's a $40,000 increase. And basically, what the result of that is, you can't really see it on the bottom. So for the 10%, last month in January, if you're here, with 12% of the budget, it went up $25,986. Proposals I just showed you, February, is $132,660, for a total of $158,646. But again, next month is the big one. Benefits, salaries, everything else. Pete?
Gordon, could you just, if you could please elaborate on the selective process that we use for selecting
BOCES?
BOCES?
Thank you. That's a good question and a good statement. Our BOCES students, BOCES has admission requirements on their own. We use those BOCES requirements. Mr. Dyro, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But we have our own BOCES admission requirements as well, in addition to what BOCES requires. So it's not easy to get in there. Your record has to be clean. You have to have a good average. Not everyone is just admitted carte blanche. Am I right, Matt?
Correct. We basically go through our process first here. Obviously, attendance, if there are any attendance issues or any other red flags that might give us concern, we'll conference with the kids who are interested in those programs. Once we send those applications over to BOCES, they have a more stringent application process. So they're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And if a student may select a certain program over there, they may tell us that that student would not meet the requirements for that program and recommend a different program for that student. So obviously we can work with them in that case.
So thanks for answering that, Mr. Van Middleton, and thank you, Matt. It's not a cakewalk getting into that program. We have requirements because obviously if we get 36 requests, we have to get it down to 23 for that budget year. So that's what our increase is. As I mentioned to you, this is the big one. The rest of the budget in March. Salaries and benefits, ground security, athletics, operation and maintenance. And we hope to have firm numbers from the state so we know what aid we're getting, and we will show you that. We'll see what our budget looks like. But again, we can't go over 2% increase, correct? Can't.
Well,
And what we proposed in the last 2 months, tonight, what we'd like to see implemented, added, and what we presented last month, the board has to see all this, weigh this, particularly at the end of March. If we do need cuts, they will determine or send us back and say, you need to cut so much money from the budget. Then we have to review all the items, all the proposals, and do that. Questions? Okay, thank you. Will the board please join me on the stage? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. First item is approval of the minutes. Pete?
Number 3, approval of the minutes. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the January 18, 2022 regular meeting as submitted.
Thank you, Pete. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Before we go into any questions with regards to the budget, last month we had some questions regarding the cafeteria. We had the opportunity, because we have a student member now, to assist us, and he had a chance to visit with some of his fellow students, got some information together about the cafeteria, the food being served, selection, and things like that. We were able then to schedule a meeting with the company, their manager here, and the regional director, and he attended on behalf of the board with Linda Jensen. Told it was a very positive meeting, that they will be visiting on a more regular basis with one another, and he will be assisting us in putting student committees in both the middle school and the elementary school. So I wanted to thank JP for his assistance in this, to get real grassroots information with regards to the cafeteria and service. Any questions with regards to items on the agenda? Okay. Lisa, appointments, instructional, number 1.
Number 1, math teacher, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and board of education hereby approves the following probationary appointment for Christina Julie, start date December 1st, 2022, expiration date August 31st, 2026, tenure area is math, compensation, step A, CA, and certification status is initial.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Lisa, would you mind moving on to social studies teacher?
Sure. Number 2, social studies teacher, leave replacement. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent, the board of education hereby approves the following leave replacement position. Name of employee is Brittany Waite, start date February 3rd, 2022, expiration date is June 24th, 2022. Leave replacement. Tenure area is social studies, compensation step ABA, certification status is initial.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Appointments, non-instructional, Karen?
Office assistant part-time resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the board of education hereby approves the following part-time appointment. Stacy Tingo, February 7th, 2021, office assistant, step 1, 5 hours a day.
May I have a second? Second. Whoa. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Karen, would you mind doing 2?
School District 8, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Patrice Alexander, 2022, School District 8, Step 2.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Ed, number 3, substitute custodian.
Substitute custodian, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment for Michael Nienberg, February 10th, 2022, substitute custodian at $16.25 per hour.
May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Ed, would you mind going on with substitute custodian?
We just did substitute
Oh,
custodian.
I'm sorry, coaches.
Coaches, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following coaching appointments for the 2022-23 school year as listed.
May I have a second?
Second.
Paul, any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Pete, Committee on Special Education.
Committee on Special Education, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education has no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorization for the funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you, Anne Marie. All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Action item 4.
Obsolete equipment. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and authorized for disposal as listed.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Karen, would you please do town of Brookhaven exemptions?
Granting the town of Brookhaven exemptions for 2021-2022, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby grants the following exemptions as listed.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Questions and comments? We have a few written questions. Ms. Farrar? Question passed, and I can't read the next word.
Future enforcement.
Going forward.
Can Anthony go first? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the better part of the past 2 years, our children have worn masks. For the past 6 months, we've tried to go the emotional route with stories and pleas from the community, but to no avail. We've asked you to join various lawsuits with other school districts or to simply write a friendly amicus brief to Judge Miller saying that you're in favor of parents' choice. But again, to no avail. You've been called upon multiple times to listen to the taxpayers of the district and to remedy the improper regulation. At this point, we cannot allow you to continue to violate the law. So at this time, I'd like to call on Lauren Brewer to read a letter of intent from over 300 parents and grandparents of the community. She can use my remaining time as well.
Mount Sinai School Board, please be advised, this Board of Education has been notified by the community at large that the mandates imposed under NY 10 NYCRR 2.60 were illegal. Through both open public meetings and email communications, you have been called upon to listen to the taxpayers of this district and remedy the improper regulation. Not once have you listened to this community. Instead, you have intentionally engaged in deliberate indifference to the federal and constitutional and statutory rights of others, resulting in hostile environment under civil liability statutes. You are violating the United States Constitution, the New York State Constitution, and multiple state laws. Your teachers and staff are practicing medicine without a license, as defined by the New York State Education Law, Article 31, titled Medicine. The practice of the profession of medicine is defined as diagnosed, treating, operating, or prescribing any human disease, pain, injury, deformity, or physical condition. Therefore, also violating New York State Office of Professional Codes. In addition, we have advised you that the Board of Education members are not immune to personal liability under the Civil Rights Section 1983 action. Despite our pleading at the recent Board of Ed meetings, To correct these violations, the Board of Education members and the superintendent, along with the advisement of the district contracted law firm, continue to implement widespread practices of school officials and employees, which, although not authorized by adopted policy, became common and well settled as a custom that clearly represents district policy. Customs including forced and coerced masking of students, isolation, segregation, forced and coerced testing, quarantining, verbal and nonverbal cues to students to adjust their mask wearing, deprivation of learning, a previously enjoyed right until students comply. Governor Cuomo's state emergency disaster emergency powers were rescinded in June of 21. Governor Hochul has never been endowed with any such powers. Even if she were, emergency authorizations of medical devices still require informed consent. Mandates and directives are not law. You are under no obligation to follow directives or recommendations. You acted in concert with the state in making the community believe this is a law. The Governor, Department of Health, New York State Education Department, USNY Corporation, are not legislative bodies and do not pass laws. Sanitary Code 10 NYC-RR 2.60 was amended in a capricious and arbitrary manner. At no time did this school district provide the community with independent metrics or data or the efficacy of mask wearing, nor the harm created by extending mask wearing, especially of minors. As a matter of fact, we have the FOIL from New York State Department of Health stating they do not have records of that data. The Centers of Disease Control and Prevention on Friday, January 14, 2022, clarified its stance on various kinds of masks, acknowledging that cloth masks do not offer as much protection as surgical masks or respirators. In addition, the FDA and the CDC publicly announced to discontinue the use of PCR tests as a metric. On January 24th, the New York State Supreme Court found masking to be unconstitutional. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the Board of Education continues to enforce authoritative and harmful practices, including mental, physical, and emotional harm on the student body, families, and taxpayers. Let it be known that your failures to competently satisfy professional duties as prescribed by law constitute a breach of oath and faithful performance of duties. We have listed some of the immediate remedies to cure this complaint. 1, all enforcement of custom policies requiring masks of students and teachers. 2, end all current and future vaccine clinics as well as propaganda on vaccine efficacy or an emergency drug with no substantive empirical data. 3, end requirement of COVID tests to partake in school functions or access to the building. 4, renegotiate the contract with the state, ARP, ESSER fund, and return the funds. 5, immediately amend the reopening plan. You are hereby served with a notice of intent upon your bond. A copy of this notice will be given to the district clerk.
Mr. Marco, plans for vaccination, plans for after vacation, tests will come back.
Yeah, there was a few things that I was concerned about. As far as when we come back from vacation, I know other districts are backpacking home COVID rapid tests with their children, and they are to test the Sunday before we return from vacation. I'm very concerned about it because I don't want my kids, my small children, to be in possession of that. If they're sick, I'll consult their pediatrician. I don't see the point in testing healthy children and putting them through something like that. So is that something that the district has even discussed yet? Is that something you're going to pop on us on Friday? It's just going to show up? Or that's not a plan at all?
Not a plan at all.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to also ask, I wanted to know with respect to legal representation for the district. I wanted to know I know you haven't done anything with respect to masks for our students, but I want to know if you're planning on seeking counsel with respect to mandating the vaccine. Because from the chatter that I've been hearing is that's probably going to be a condition to come to school. Or come to school
We
masked.
have no knowledge of that. We have no information with regards to that, to the extent both this reference to test to return to school or vaccinations. I know as much as what you've just said and what's been in the media. We've been given no guidance.
I
We have-
understand that we have no guidance. I don't mean to speak over you. I know you're gonna tell me what I already know, like as far as like what's public knowledge. I wanna know if you and the board have a plan, because we've just been sitting waiting for directives, and that brings me to my last point. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what is the legal law, which law is cited that the kids all must be masked in school. Because I know that there's mandates, but we know that a mandate is not law. We know that the health department cannot make law, only the legislative process. I know it's being tied up in the court, but to a certain degree, I would like to see our board and our district fight a little bit harder for our children. I don't want to put you on the spot. You do a lot for our school, Mr. Brosdale, but you were uncomfortable speaking for that short amount of time with your mask on. Think of my 4-year-old in the wonderful pre-K program that you got for our schools. Think of my first grader who gets speech. I just feel like that we need to do better for our students. At this point, you know, we're all tax-paying citizens. We know that there is money to be lost, and I'm willing to take that loss for my child.
Additionally, the last letter that the board sent to Governor Hochul was a very backhanded letter. Considering the way that you guys, the previous letters were written, the last one, masking teachers, reserving the right to mask your staff. I mean, how does your staff feel about that? And what was the small instruction? Does that mean my children who receive special services, if they're in a small room and it's a few kids together in a small space, and my kids are going to have to be masked because they have a disability? I think we all wanted clarification on that as well, because where some districts wrote really nice letters and said, we're done, this is enough, you guys then kind of backpedaled. You should just not write a letter at all. It was really, really quite ridiculous, honestly.
Well, at this point, with the guidelines still in place, our position is where we think we should be moving forward. And moving forward, we did not have consultation with the staff at this point and how their position is with the union. And in terms of small space issues, it wasn't specific to instruction. We left that open with regards to what, you know, someone's in the nurse's office, something like that. Our intent was to demonstrate that we have seen now the need to move forward and would support a end of the mask, because we're seeing now that we progressed well. At this point, I don't see what March 10th will be or anything like that. You look at the numbers, you look at what's going on, whether you agree or not in terms of all of the different pieces.
I mean, I agree with
We
what
look
you're
at the
saying.
numbers and we look at where we're going. We had
So
good
my question
results,
is,
and I would
why-
like to continue that.
Why would
That's
the
our
board,
intent.
why would the board put in a letter that you want to reserve the right to mask your teachers or either kids or teachers in a small setting? If people have the right to choose, if teachers are uncomfortable, then they can wear a mask. So can any staff, and so can any child. So
We
I
don't
just
disagree
think
with
it's-
that. This gives us it's only with regards to the staff, we would have to have consultation with the union. And I would leave it at
So
that.
they have no rights as an individual?
As we would we always work directly with the union, that's how it works in the district, and we give them the respect to discuss that. That's all that intended.
You
There was
touched base
another,
on the
I have a
metrics.
couple of written questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's just one little thing to it, please, respectfully. Kathy Hochul yesterday declared a state of emergency with all the numbers going down. Despite masks, despite vaccine, Omicron, the numbers were really high as far as people infected. And you're saying that we're seeing the numbers go in the right direction, but I'm seeing people who are taking advantage of our Board of Education in trusting that the government's telling us what's best for our students, and I don't see an end in sight. You know, like, it's hard for me to have faith when I don't see you guys really fighting hard for that. Especially considering, like, do you have any clue why yesterday was declared a state of emergency with respect to COVID and all of
We have
that?
no information with regard to.
No one has it. So why are we settling for that? You know what I mean? Like, it's our money, it's for your children as well. Why are we just accepting it? We have to push. Give us answers. Especially to someone who's not elected.
Don't be a sheep.
So, I don't have any other questions presented. I think your points are well taken, and I understand them, and I appreciate them. We do appreciate them, and I stand by what the board outlined in that letter. We need to move forward, and we need to learn to live with whatever COVID is going to become, and that's how it works. I don't see much beyond that. I'm not a politician. I'm not a doctor. I don't see where else we would be going. I think your points are very well thought out, and I appreciate it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ed,
Is there another one?
may I have a second?
Wait,
They
I
filled out forms.
filled out a form. Pellegrino?
Oh, I'm sorry.
See it?
Yep, sorry.
That's good.
Question, comment about your letter?
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Pellegrino.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just take a little different angle on the letter that you sent. My name is Mark Pellegrino. I'd like to address your letter to the governor. While I appreciate the letter, there are items of concern that concern me. Happy to see the importance of parent and student choice, but in your letter, you offered the governor to keep the teachers masked. One of the biggest contributors to our children's loss of learning over the last 2 years was the teachers being masked. The fact that teachers continually wear masks is detrimental to the children's ability to learn. When they can't hear the teacher clearly or see their face, emotions, expressions, enunciation, or smiles, this impacts their learning. So when the mask rule is lifted, only half of the problem may be solved. I feel you should have never offered that, to take that away from the teacher's choice to remove their mask, because they're on the front line and they know what each individual child needs to learn. There may be an instance where a child may need to see the teacher's actual form of word, or there may be a child that can't hear clearly. Teachers should be able to take off their mask so the child can see or hear them better. You've taken these tools away from them. There a reason you offered that. The next thing in the letter, suggesting higher quality masks for anyone who chooses. This is also concerning. As a utility worker and a licensed New York State asbestos handler and supervisor, I have been trained by OSHA to don these devices. By suggesting a higher quality mask, such as a KN95 or an N95, there's a lot of risk associated with these. These masks are not masks at all, but rather respirators. And by definition, they protect only the wearer's inhalation if fitted and worn properly, and only after medical evaluation, medical clearance, training, fit testing, monitored, and annual medical surveillance. One must go through the steps I just mentioned. These practices have been in place since 1972. I've had annual training for the past 20 years, and these rules have been consistent up until now when it comes to the public. Since the cloth masks and the surgical masks that most people have been wearing are finally considered not to be effective, I fear that something that was never intended for the general public, especially for children, has now been suggested only because there is no other option for the CDC to recommend, and for those who feel the need, the security for some kind of face covering. But unless you are medically cleared and they are fit tested, worn, handled, stored, and disinfected properly, this is a false sense of security. Wearing either one of these respirators should be the choice of the individual, but there also needs to be the responsibility to educate oneself in order to wear them properly for their own health and for them to actually be effective. I felt it was necessary to share with you my knowledge and experience of 20 years so that you are fully aware of what you asked the governor permission for. And in conclusion, for anyone's choice to wear a mask, but when it comes to the teachers, I think it was a mistake to offer that, to keep the teachers masked, because there may be instances where the teacher needs to remove their mask to assist the child, to better a child's learning experience, and you took that away from them. And there's one more question. Again, appreciate the letter, but for some miracle, the governor sees it, your letter and says, okay, Mount Sinai, you can have the choice. Is it already a done deal? Did you vote for it? Are the masks gone?
Other mask on?
Gone.
Oh, gone?
The governor says, okay, you have your choice. Go ahead, do what you want. Are the masks gone? Did
We
you vote for that?
agree that we should be without masks if you choose.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can you guys vote in public right now?
There's nothing to vote on.
Nothing to vote.
We never voted to have masks.
No.
I understand that, but there's a lot of.
You don't
issues.
vote to not have the mask. There was nothing that,
But in your letter, you're asking to reserve the right to keep the masks on half the population in the building. So our question is, like other school districts are taking live votes at their board meetings to show that you guys on record will remove the masks from the kids. That's what we're
Our
asking.
letter speaks very
Letter speaks for
clearly,
itself.
that's what we intend. All
But
right?
then why was it not possible for everyone to get together before the amicus brief to be able to join it when it kept getting extended? I understand that, maybe not everyone was available, but don't you guys use Zoom or anything else? I mean, if you really were fighting for our kids, wouldn't you just put in a good faith letter to the judge? I mean,
We
a
don't-
lot of schools did it.
We have taken.
Miller Police did it.
We didn't do that. We'll take a vote on our adjournment. Thank you. You have very good points, Mr. Pellegrino. Thank you. I didn't mean to miss your note. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.